things. Everybody, welcome to today's stream. Today on How It's Done, we are playing a game called 20XX. This is a beta version of the game, as you can see.
Also released in the year 20XX.
Released in the year 20XX.
And isn't that when war was beginning also, in the year 20XX? A lot of things happened.
A lot of things happened. A lot of things happened in 20XX. This is also... See, I thought of this as the year of 20XXL because of the Magic Mike sequel. This went better in my head.
That is the future of America's 20XXL.
That went better in my head. Ladies and gentlemen, that voice that you hear there...
Do you want me to add my face to this voice?
Oh, add your face. Get your face in here.
You want some face action, right?
Yeah, everybody wants to see your dome. That is none other than Games Radar Editor-in-Chief Ludwig Kitzman. My name is Anthony John Agnello, Senior Social Editor, and your host today. And yeah, we're playing this game, 20XX, which is very appropriately named considering the way it immediately calls up old school Capcom games and old school like Sega and Namco and all kinds of 1990s twitchy action games. This is made by, I want to make sure I get their name right, Ludwig. It's Battery. Hold on, because it's one
Battery
word.
Seems like an easy thing to pronounce.
No, it's Batterystaple. I keep wanting to say Battery Spike. It's Batterystaple Games. This is their glorious thing, and the nice thing about it is it's not just a straight Mega Man clone. There are procedurally generated levels, which, as Ludwig and I have discussed before on this show, it can be a boon or it can be a real detriment to your thing.
So are you in a level hub right now? Is that what I'm seeing?
You're looking at a level hub right now.
I like it when you can walk around level hubs. Like, it's not just a menu.
Me too. I really like that, and I'm looking forward to. So in half an hour, we're going to be joined by Chris King of Batterystaple Games, and I want to ask him if that hub world was in any way influenced by not the Mega Man Legacy Collection that recently came out, but the Mega Man Anniversary Collection from 2004, which has a
right, because that one also has
hub.
sort of a new hub world and things like that
Yeah.
to tie all the games together, right?
So Ludwig and I were going to be playing this co-op, which is sort of part of its selling point, is that it's not just a sort of Mega Man level where you're going from right to left and that's it. You can play it with another person. Unfortunately, as tends to happen with beta versions of games, we had a little trouble getting his running. We thought that we could run on a Mac, and it apparently cannot run on
As a
Mac.
backup, yeah, but like it's not going to happen. But on the plus side, I think this will be a more entertaining stream because I won't be there to help you all the time and save the butt.
It's not fair, Bloody.
Although you should be able to fall into this like lockstep because I feel like this is the kind of game that you're good at.
This is the only kind of game I'm good at. It's funny, like
I mean, you've been playing Azure Strike Gunvolt. That's some good practice.
So that is Ludwig. That game is one of the reasons I really wanted to stream this game with you. Is that I think you and I are two of maybe the 50 total people on the face of the planet that actually played Azure Striker Gunvolt.
Well, I think it's going to be played a lot more now that it's on Steam.
So is that out? Is the Steam version out? Is that in the world?
Let me check. I'm not preoccupied with platforming and shooting, so I can do some research for you.
If any of our viewers out there are unfamiliar with Gunstroke,
Gunstroke. It's when you fire off a gun way too many times.
Oh god!
I got Gunstroke.
I got Gunstroke. Azure Striker Gunvolt. It is a platformer that came out on 3DS last year, made by Intercreates. It's the dudes who made at one
Which
time.
are trying to finish.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the games they actually finished. They made Mega Man 9. They made Mega Man 10, they made Mega Man ZX, they made the Mega Man Zero series.
I prefer to pronounce it Mega Man Zex.
Zex. That just sounds
Once it's a
filthy.
Mega Man Zex.
I think that's an
Yes.
independently published comic book in Japan
Mega Man Zex.
that shows some lewd activity between X and Zero. That's what I think that is.
I can. Well, let me just double check here. I can confirm that Azure Striker Gunvolt came out on PC on August 28th.
Oh,
It's
all right.
$15.
So it's out there. You know what? So I was recently replaying that because I picked up the new 3DS. Not a new 3DS, or the new 3DS XL, which came out in God, what, February now? But the smaller model of new 3DS. I picked up one of those, and it has a very nice...
non-XL
The non-XL.
U3DS.
And I was very interested in checking it out because I've enjoyed the new 3DS XL, but it's a little too heavy. It's a little too big. And I really like the swappable cover plates. Oh, man. Bloody, I think I'm going to die in this game. I think that's going to happen.
The stream hasn't caught up yet, but now I'm eagerly awaiting.
Well, I'm not dead yet. I just feel like it's a coming. So, I'm not sure if you saw what just happened. The game gave me a choice of 3 places to proceed to.
Those enemies look pretty cool.
Yeah, the enemy design is cool, except that, I mean, you're an anime guy, Ludwig. Have you noticed that this penguin is clearly the penguin from Evangelion? That's what's happening. Look at him.
I mean, I can see the resemblance.
You're saying I'm a penguin racist? That they don't all...
Yeah, not all penguins look the same.
God, I don't mean to be a penguin racist, Ludwig. Ludwig, you're looking real sharp today, by the way, in the studio.
Oh, thank you.
I like it, man. The Mohawk has continued to grow into itself since PAX.
That's my main complaint about it, is that it's growing, and it's just it's kind of a hassle to maintain because you have to shave your head pretty often to keep it clean looking.
Yeah, I like
but
it.
I'm pretty lazy for that.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
I think the messier it looks is pretty badass. Yodel, I really wanted the smaller new 3DS, but I was convinced it wasn't coming to the US, so I bought a new XL. Me too! I did the exact same thing, and that's why I'm selling my new 3DS XL, because I got one of the Majora's Mask ones, and apparently people are still going crazy about it. Oh, maybe these will help. Ooh. Alright, so I can't buy any of this. Alright, I need to talk to Batterystaple, Chris King.
Batterystaple.
Battery something Chris King about what is randomly generated and what is not. Because and what do I get?
Well, it's like procedurally generated. Like procedural is different from random.
That's true. Yes. Yeah. And you know what? I tend to accidentally conflate those two things pretty regularly, Ludwig.
Accidental conflation is a problem that hits us all once we're after a certain age.
Yeah, men of a certain age have to deal with accidental conflation. Ludwig, what are your Mega Man games of choice?
Hi, Neon J82. Hello.
Hello. Yeah. What do you look for in this type of game? When you have a platformer where you're running left to right, shooting stuff, what do you want it to do?
I want it to feel like the movement has to feel fun. Like It has to feel like it's a good speed, responsive for me to adjust my direction mid-air, that kind of thing. The jumping has to feel pretty freeing, like I don't want to feel like I'm an anvil with legs. And I guess the shooting has to feel satisfying too. Like it has to have good visual feedback for when you're hitting enemies. And I love that this is the charge attack, because that's always fun, like that holding off and then releasing.
Yeah, that. So wait, you're soul nuts, Ludwig. We're discovering this game together. right now. I played through the tutorial, and so nobody got to see.
This is almost an episode of Departure Lounge if you're coming into it blind.
Well, I'm not coming into it totally blind. I played the tutorial level, which is actually perfect. It's exact right length that a tutorial level needs to be. It's, here's what these buttons do, here's how you go through the stage, here's a boss, now go play the game. And it was just like over and done. But there's a lot in there that is not in this main game. Like, I don't know what soul nuts are. So, your soul nuts vanish
They're
when
what's in
starting a new run.
your heart bolts.
Do you really want... Do you really want to continue? No, I want to spend my nuts. I'm gonna have to talk to Chris King about that. I'm gonna have to.
Well, I mean, like, so you earn soul nuts and then you have to spend them before you start a new run because I think it's like a Rogue Legacy where your balance is reset. I think when you start again.
And so it looks like in place.
Did you earn enough?
Yeah, I actually had a few soul nuts. And so I unlocked armor and a power boost, and now they'll automatically like end up in the field. Neon J82 says that I'm a little quiet. I can jack that up.
Maybe I'm a little loud.
You are a little loud, yes, but you're always a little loud, Ludwig. I like you loud in my heart.
Like, is that serious? Like, do I need to make an adjustment for the technical?
No, my read is that guy on the right is a bit quiet, guy on the left is a bit loud. So you know what? I'll adjust you. How about that?
Go ahead, adjust me, see if you can. Many people have tried.
Many people have tried. I've done so. Luddy, you also earlier this week on our Twitch channel, you played another game about shooting things and running around.
This is actually my third time streaming this week.
Oh my god, that's right. You've had a hat trick of streams. How was Knock Knock, by the way, on Departure Lounge?
It was really strange. It was actually utterly confusing at the beginning of the game. But I liked that because I thought the ambiguity and the what is going on nature of it really suited the look and the main character quite well. But once we got the hang of it, it's kind of like an interesting stealth game.
Oh, neat.
With some light resource management in the sense that you can only you're supposed to turn on lights in a room, and then when you've turned on the lights, your eyes start adjusting and you can see things in the room because you're trying to basically see everything in the house. But you can't leave lights on too long because the light bulb will pop and you'll have to replace it. But if you enter a room and there's a ghost, for instance, you'll want a light on. But if you have to replace the light bulb first, then you're screwed. So it's interesting. It's labyrinthine and creepy. The audio is very creepy. It has a great visual look, like really unique.
Sounds awesome.
Super cool. I don't know if it has a lot of lasting power. I think it has a habit of being frustrating. There are a couple of things that I don't like about it, but for the most part, it was a really interesting game. I liked it. I mean, for the stream, it was perfect.
Luddy, how do you feel about, it's interesting you say, I don't know if it has a lot of lasting power. And I feel like we're for the first time in an age where there are many games coming out that aren't really meant to be replayed. They're sort of one and done things. Yeah. And I'm wondering how you feel about that. Do you need a game to be something that you can play many times?
No. I think usually when I mean lasting power, I mean, would I be willing to invest time, multiple days, to complete the game? Or just play it for, more than 90 minutes? Right. I would say, like, if I play something more than 5 hours, that has lasting power, because I was willing to commit that amount of time to it. But right now, I think we live in an era where you will play a lot of games for an hour, maybe 90 minutes, and then you say, okay, I get it, I like it, but I'm done. There is way more out there that I need to see. But I have 4,000 games in my Steam library. Exactly. And I'm just going to not do it. Alright, what do I want here? Force Nova. Release a shockwave crushing foes and blocking shots. That sounds pretty cool. Yeah, that does sound cool. I can get a nut stack. You know what? I know that I shouldn't laugh at that,
Like, I should be above these things, but that's gonna get me a few times, I think. At least. Potato
I feel like
head.
Nutstack is just so close to having one letter missing and being very different.
Being a very different thing. Very different thing.
I wasn't expecting this kind of humor from this game, to be honest.
Neither did I. Neither was I. I thought it was going to be very, very, you know, Mega Man X-y. I thought it was going to be very, like, if there was humor, it would be cheeky anime humor. Not like, oh, now there are giant robot death balls with, hamsters in the middle of them.
I'm liking the animation on a lot of the effects.
Right?
They're really nice.
You know, it's a game where I will admit that the first time I looked at it, I was not really taken with the art style. I looked at it and I was like, there's something about this that isn't clicking with me. But seeing it in motion, like the animation of all the characters really sells it for me. Like, I love the guy's little jump. Like, that jump animation is great. With his arms going up in the air, it's very, very personable, I think is the word I'm looking for. Why would they put the robot hamsters in a spiked robot wheel? I don't understand, buddy. Just don't understand.
Self-defense.
I can imagine this becoming very, very chaotic very quickly if you were trying to play it co-op.
Knuckles chaotic.
It would not be chaotic.
Which is the highest level of chaotic.
I don't know if chaotix is what it would be. Oh, jeez. That was interesting. So instead of just instantly killing me when I fell in the lava, you lose a little life and then get boosted up to the last solid ground you were on.
Nice.
That's a good touch. Oh, right there. Happened again.
Very seamless.
I am having one of those issues where I think that part of the background is a platform I can actually jump on. That was one of my big complaints in Azer Striker Gunvolt. There was not enough of a clear difference, even when you had 3D on the 3DS turned on, between what was background and what wasn't.
Neon J82 is asking Guy. I mean, have you confirmed the gender of the main character here?
Oh yeah, I think I'm using Guy in the I grew up playing video games in the 80s and 90s sense. Like, that's my guy. Like, even Samus Aran was, the guy. That is not a gender-specific guy. That is the generic terminology for the game character on the screen. I don't know if this is a girl. I think it's a robot. I don't even know if it's a person. I mean, they have a gun arm, but, like, you know, we could have a Samus situation. Oh man, I'm getting shot up.
This looks really fun. It looks like you immediately know where to go, what to do, how to avoid the hazards.
Oh man,
there's a good visual language to this game.
You hit the nail on the head too about movement. Like, this game, like, if there was none of this sort of artistic embellishment and you were just playing this black and white and they were stick figures like N+, it would still be awesome. Like, it
Yodel is
feels
saying
right.
also a 1-up is a guy.
Yeah, a 1-up is a guy. Yes.
Extra guy.
I'm out of guys. I am out of guys. Oh. No. Ah! Come on. Come on.
It was clearly charging up an attack. That was obvious.
Ooh. Oh, man.
It was telegraphed.
These are hard. Oh, son of a crap.
This still seems easier than like a really tough Mega Man boss, though. Like some of the Mega Man bosses feel very, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm trying not to say chaotic, but
unpredictable.
Like the way that they play out doesn't seem entirely predicted by the way they were designed. Does that make sense?
Neon J82 is clearly familiar with 20XX, because he's saying Rollster is the bane of many a run. Rollster just destroyed me.
Rollster!
Damn Rollster! I'm glad that that's not. I'm glad that that's not an uncommon. Wow, so this is funny. The deep cut references to other games in here are pretty.
Oh yeah,
cute.
you're playing someone who's Nina. Like Nina is a lady.
Oh, I am okay. So I'm
Yeah,
Nina.
so blue is Nina. Who's the red one? Got the red thing?
Ace. Oh, I
There
can
you
be
go.
Ace. All right. Oh. All right. I'm gonna try Ace. Ace, which is the
You're gonna
name...
make a Star Ocean game?
I'm gonna make a... Try Ace. Heyo.
Whoa!
Have you seen the pictures for the new Star Ocean game that they're making for PlayStation 4? Have you seen screenshots of that?
I have not, but my first question is, I mean, are the Star Ocean games any good? Because I think I reviewed... What was the one that came out on Xbox 360? It was a big deal.
Oh my
that it
god!
came to Xbox
It was
360.
Star Ocean 4, which I cannot remember the name of. There's
The End of Time.
no.
The Blackness of Space.
Something like that. You're thinking, no, because it's 3 that's the endless ocean or something like that. And apparently 3 just made people so angry. That was the PlayStation 2 one, and it wasn't like super pervy like the Xbox 360 one apparently was. That was what I heard about that Star Ocean. That it was deeply perverted was its main characteristic.
I just remember in whatever Star Ocean that was, it was this science fiction story where humanity has been exploring the stars for a long time, and there's all kinds of other races, and when you discover someone else, they just make a big deal. One of your party members, they make a big deal that it's an alien. They're like, holy crap, it's an alien.
Right?
It's like, but haven't you, huh?
Hasn't this been going on for thousands of years? So I played 2, which was a PlayStation game, and I did not...
I'm opening up a Star Ocean wiki for
I did
you,
not
so.
really care for it. I've always wanted to play the original Star Ocean for Super Nintendo, which I know got a PSP port at some point, but they remade it. And, ugh, man, I do not care.
You're thinking of, so there's Star Ocean Till the End of Time.
Okay, that's 3.
That's the PlayStation 2 one.
Yeah, and that's the one
That's
that everybody
3?
hates. Yes, because at the end, and I've never even played the game. I just know that at the end, it's revealed.
It's all a simulation.
Yeah, you're in
Yeah,
an MMO.
even I know that, and it's like, I've never played it either.
That's a mean thing to do. Alright, NeonJ82 says, Ace is definitely my favorite in both animation and wielding a swordness. Yes. The wielding a sword factor is why I loved Zero way back in the day. I thought Zero was the coolest. Oh my god, I am not doing as well this time, Letty. Oh man, disappearing blocks. Very fair disappearing blocks, mind you.
So, I'm gonna go over these real quick. Star Ocean. First game was just called Star Ocean. It was out for the Super Famicom.
Yes.
They remade it, and it was called Star Ocean First Departure. And that came out on PSP.
That was PSP.
Star Ocean, the second story, guess what? That's the second one. Also came out on PSP as Second Evolution. It was a PlayStation 1 game. It had animated cutscenes provided by Production IG.
Oh.
Star Ocean Blue Sphere is a direct sequel to the second story released for the Game Boy Color. Till the End of Time was for PlayStation 2.
Wow, there's a Game Boy Color game?
Yeah, it's called Blue Sphere.
That is news to me, man. Oh, son of a crap!
The main character of Star Ocean Till the End of Time is called Fate Line God.
No. That's
Yes.
unacceptable.
Star Ocean The Lost Hope, this is the one that I didn't enjoy. That was for Xbox 360. And then it eventually came to PS3, but they made a big deal about it being exclusive to 360.
Yes, I remember that.
It is, and it's a prequel to the entire series. In that game, you play someone called Edge Maverick.
Wow, that name is intense. That doesn't feel like it belongs in an Xbox 360 game.
I'm surprised there hasn't been a Star Ocean since then. That was 2009.
Well, I know that since then, Tri-Ace... I know that Tri-Ace...
They did Resonance of Fate.
Yeah, they did Resonance of Fate
And
after that.
Did they do one of the one of the Unreal Engine games? Like there were those two.
Yes, Infinite Undiscovery.
There was the Lost Remnant and Infinite Undiscovery.
But
Yes.
Infinite Undiscovery came out before Star Ocean, and it was a disaster. Like, just did not go well at all.
Are you sure you don't think of the Lost Remnant? Because that was a
Yeah.
disaster.
The Last Remnant, apparently, if you play the PC version, is actually pretty good. So I'm told. Every now and again, I like when I see on Twitter or something, somebody still holding out hope for the PlayStation 3 edition of The Last Remnant. Be like, it's coming! It'll happen! Square never officially canceled it. We'll get
So
that game.
you're saying Infinite Undiscovery was not good? Because it seemed interesting.
Yeah,
but-
it was not great. It did not work out well.
The Lost Remnant is down to $10 on Steam.
Hey, I should do it. I should play that game.
User reviews very positive.
Yeah, there you go. See?
After 1,990 reviews.
So it looks like our guest of the day, Batterystaple Games, is already hanging out. Chris King is in the chat, and we'll be talking to him on the line in just 4 more minutes. I'm going to try and get to another boss without dying. I don't think I'm going to do it, Luddy. I think I'm not.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't bet on it.
I think I'm not great at this. So far, the very first level, I've seen some cool variations of the first level. Because the last 2 times I've taken a run at it... Ooh, I want that. Why can't I have that? The last 2 times I've run the first level, I have been plagued by a automatically shooting me target that you have to go into these little green spots to defuse, which is a nice touch. I like that. Like, it seems every single time you join us to talk to a developer, we're playing some game that is pixelated and styled on an older, more pure, some would say, time in the video game.
We're so
campaign.
predictable.
We're predictable guys. We're set in our ways! Luddy, I want to tell you, I'm very excited that it's October now, because we've booked some of, I'm so excited about the guests that we're going to be having on the show. And today, they confirmed that they're making it happen. The hosts of Monster Talk, one of my favorite podcasts in the world, are going to be joining us for a session with the new Fatal Frame. And what Monster Talk is they talk about, like, creatures of myth and cryptozoology and vampires and ghosts, and talk with scientists and anthropologists and historians about the historical realities of these things. So, you know, talking with, like, a plesiosaur expert about the Loch Ness Monster and the impossibility of the Loch Ness Monster. So, they're going to tell us all about how real the ghosts are in Fatal Frame. I'm very excited.
Which is extremely real.
Super, super, super real.
So what was our original point about screenshots of the new Star Ocean,
Oh,
which
the
is
new
called
Star Ocean.
Integrity and Faithlessness?
Integrity and faithlessness? What? The point... I was asking you if you had seen them. Because I feel like it looks really good. Like, when you see a shot quickly, you're like, that looks great. And then the closer you get to the characters, the more, like, creepy mannequins they look like. Deeply upsetting, creepy mannequin people. I think it's time that we bring in Chris King before I start up yet another level of 20XX. Let's bring the man in here. Add people to this call. Oh, wait a second. Where is he? Where is that man? Everybody hold with us a moment while I try to make Skype work. Ludwig, are you now looking at Are you now looking at There we go. Are you now looking at the screenshots of
Yeah, I looked at some. I think I've seen enough.
You've seen it. You've seen all you need to see.
Hey, how's it going?
Chris King! But how?
Hi.
It works.
Hello! Welcome, Chris. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are just joining us, welcome to this week's episode of How It's Done, Games Radar's weekly developer talk show, where we bring in somebody who's made a game, then we play that game with them on the line, and we ask them all the questions about it.
Sometimes it's even the game that they've made.
Sometimes it's even the game that they've made. My name is Anthony John Agnello, Senior Social Editor at Games Radar. I'm joined by Ludwig Kitzman, our Editor-in-Chief, who's hanging out. And the latest challenger here on the line with us is Batterystaple Games' Chris King. Chris is the creator of 20XX's. How you doing, Chris?
It's true. I'm doing just fine. How are you guys today?
Very good, man. Very good. I am getting my ass handed to me.
I saw a little bit of that.
By your game. I am getting the crap kicked out of me.
It's definitely one of those games that it has a bit of a learning curve. Not the easiest game in the world.
But I like that. A game like this. So Ludwig and I were both before he joined us on the call talking about what we look for in sort of a classic action platformer style game, and especially something that is indebted directly to the Mega Man series, as this is. And we both agree that the thing that it needs to do, it can't, like, it's not about, like, it being brutally hard or super easy, but as long as you move right, as long as the movement feels really good, everything feels like it's in the right place. Like, the movement is key. And
one of the big things is definitely crispness of controls, right? If even just a little bit of that doesn't feel quite right, it's easy for it to derail the entire experience, almost no matter what kind of game it is.
Yeah, and like if this character, if Nina here, didn't control just super precisely, I would be like, this game's bullshit. I can't believe how hard this is. Whatever. Like negative Steam review. Brr.
Yeah.
So what is the secret? How do you nail that feeling? Ooh.
So much iteration. Create some kind of control scheme. Start somewhere. Get all the little elements you want and play. Do your best to guess or guesstimate at how everything should feel, and then just iterate super hard on it for a lot of time. There's definitely no individual instant trick to figuring out how it ought to work. It's all about implementing something, getting a feel for it. Adjusting things here and there, every so often taking a break from it from a little while, just so you can sort of come at it fresh again. One of the ways I think that games often mess this up is that the developers and designers responsible for figuring out exactly how the control should work get a little bit too close to the problem and don't take enough time away. If you're iterating on it, you'll make some good changes, you'll make some good progress. But then if you start to get too close to it, you'll sort of, you'll feel like however it is the way it should be because it's just what you're used to, right? So it's very much about just taking a little bit of time away so you can sort of get a fresh look at it and be like, oh, I can't believe I implemented the jump this floaty. This feels like shit.
I love how these platforms that we're seeing now have sort of their own little progress bar to show you when they're about to be fully solid and when they're disappearing.
Oh, this is huge, right?
That's a really neat little visual communication.
Yeah, because Mega Man 2 does something very similar, right? So the initial idea for these came from the poofing in and out blocks in Heatman stage in Mega Man 2. Except, they're total bullshit, and they just... and they just, like, you don't know where it's going to show up until it's that one that spawns right over your head in that big lava chasm, and then you're screwed. And there's nothing you can do about it, and unless you've died to it at least once, there's no way you could possibly know, and it's just... I love the idea of that quickly moving set of blocks, but I needed a way for it to be more fair.
So funny, Chris, because I literally, about a week ago, purchased a copy of the Super Nintendo version of Rockman and Forte, which I think might have the least fair example of the disappearing blocks in the entire series. They're awful because they're huge, they're the chunky Mega Man 8 ones, and as soon as these disappearing blocks showed up, I was like, well, that's much better. That's much more digestible, having that little progress bar there.
Yeah, it's really easy to worship Mega Man 2 for all of the amazing things it does right. but it's definitely not an experience without its flaws. And some unfair mechanics like that are definitely among them. Like, right, that's a section where like anybody who's played the game before just doesn't even bother coming back there until they have Rush Jet.
Yes.
'Cause that thing sucks. Like I can't remember the last time I did that fairly, because it's not, it doesn't feel well designed to me. It feels like the kind of thing where you shouldn't have to memorize that exact thing. And especially in a game like 20XX where there's so many different layouts. It's not like you have to memorize one Heatman layout or one, Quickman bullshit insta-death beams layout. There's so many different variations of every mechanic that requiring rote memorization of each individual thing would just totally defeat the purpose.
Well, tell me a little bit about the layouts. I'm very curious about that, because at the very beginning, I made the very common mistake, and I tend to do this when something is procedurally generated. I'm like, it's randomly generated, which is what an idiot says, because that's not what this is. These are procedurally generated levels. So how...
It's a little bit fair, right? Procedural generation usually just means, random generation with a little more structure to it. So the levels of 20XX are basically, they're strung together from pretty loosely defined level pieces. Mm-hmm. Where a level piece will define, the very basic structure of the room. It'll say how high is it, how wide is it, where are some of the static platforms that don't move, where are some of the hazards. And then at game runtime, based on where you are in the game, what kind of skulls you have enabled, stuff like that. You can totally make it across that, by the way. There you go. Based on all the stuff you have enabled, it'll populate the room with, various hazards and enemy types and all sorts of good stuff like that. So each level is sort of, each individual chunk is... Sorry, I'm sort of watching you go, and it's distracting me a little. Look away from the terrible
carnage. I was just going to say, don't look too closely, man. It'll only hurt. You'll have that moment of saying, "Dear God, why are you playing like that?"
So each level is strung together from a bunch of pretty loosely defined chunks that can then have, all sorts of different variations and ways that it can spawn in. But you'll at least, when you see the same chunk, even if it's defined pretty differently, you'll probably recognize at least like the shell of the chunk.
Yeah, I've obviously I think I've played this first level, this first chunk of a run about 5 or 6 times now over the past half hour, and I've come to recognize like these certain little bits of it, and it's interesting to see them repeat, but then be sort of paired off with different pieces. It took me a couple of runs to figure out that those auto-targeting hits were happening and that I needed to get into the sort of green safe zone to defuse it.
Yeah, it's kind of on us, honestly. We could do a little bit better of a job with affordance there. It's kind of a hit or miss thing. People either immediately get them and see, oh, there's a green thing. Green's usually good. Or they'll be like, why am I still taking damage? What's happening? Oh god, this game is shit.
See, but like, I feel like the idea that you can't immediately punish somebody is a fairly modern concept, and I like a game that'll sit there and you'll walk into a new room completely unsuspecting and be like, I'm dead. I like that.
Totally, yes. I have no problem punishing somebody for not knowing one of the game mechanics. I do want to do the best job I possibly can of making sure that every individual mechanic in the game is like as self-evident as possible, reads. But if there's something, where it's just not quite possible or we're not quite there yet, I'm okay with where we are in the interim. You should try taking one of the powers, by the way. I don't know how big of a delay there is between this call and this stream.
I did it this time.
You got to use that blue bar. Yeah, there you go.
I took the Splinter Frost this time because my approach before was picking up I kept going for the nuts.
Right. Maximizing nuts, bold plan.
I mean, do you automatically know that people are going to be playing and have the brain of an idiotic 13-year-old and be like, nuts, soul nuts?
What's funny is these jokes, they sort of took on a life of their own. They weren't really intentional.
No.
So, the nuts thing, it's like, oh, you're robots. There's a bunch of robot stuff. You're busting up machines. It makes sense that you'll collect their parts. So they're nuts. Like, I didn't intend for that to be like a puerile joke at all. But then, so when we added the change where you get to take either the boss's power or something else, and the whole like 3 powers, and they're all bound to the controller at once.
Yeah.
Like that was kind of a recent change.
Oh.
Also, your power is now bound to Y.
Yes.
So that expanded the big crowded area. So that was a kind of a recent change. And one of the things I wanted to do was give the player the option of taking additional currency if they didn't want, whatever was on offer. Either they already had 3 powers they really liked, or it's just a power they don't want, and like a stat upgrade they don't want. Maybe there's like a ninja sash, and you just feel like you're going too fast, you don't want it. Takes them nuts. And I needed some art assets, and all of the icons for the powers and the weapons and the passives and all that stuff were done by a part-time contractor for us that hasn't been active with us for quite a while. We had her do a bunch of them a while ago, so I was picking an asset out of stuff that I'd had her do that we hadn't used, and I found this one image of, you know, two nuts stacked on top of each other on a bolt. And I guess that's already kind of childish sounding, isn't it? Should just realize
not that much.
That the image is also kind of goofy. But. So I realized, you know, I was like, okay, what is this? It's two nuts stacked on top of each other. Haha, it's a nut stack. And then, like, somebody immediately pointed out, like, you said nut stack. And I was like, oh, son of a... no.
Yeah, I mean, Chris, like, you... Not only is your video game going to rely on the internet to find its audience, but that's how it's being distributed. The internet is going to happen, my friend. If
yes,
there is,
you're absolutely right.
A reference to genitals that can be made, it will be.
I feel like there must be an infographic somewhere of Steam games and how well they sell and how many references there are to genitals in them.
Yeah, I feel like we actually have too many references in 20XX. I'm happy to say that that's probably a shortcoming of mine personally as I went about this. Just my lack of creativity and coming up with unique icons and names for all these things. Well, you know, some of the stuff, like some of the references are fine, and I really like them. I think they're either references to old enough stuff that I'm cool with it, or are subtle enough that I'm cool with it, and they'll probably stay. But some of them are just a little bit shoehorned in, a little bit too blunt, I guess, and they're probably going to get changed a little bit. As for, you know, the nut magic present in 20XX, I have no idea. That could go either way.
The moment that I saw, I think it was after my first or second run, I got kicked back to the hub, and there was a gold stud that allowed you to, like, have an occasional free use of a power. I was like, wow, is that a Chrono Trigger drop? Is that what's happening there? And
yep, that's what it is.
I love that, man. Well, see, like, I like a nice subtle reference, and that's a nice subtle reference.
I think that's a fine one, yeah, because the source material it's referencing is old enough that it's not just like instantly going to be, I don't know, instantly recognized by everybody. I like the idea there's a little bit of subtlety to it.
So, Chris, let's go back a little bit further, man.
Sure.
Tell me about how this project started. Tell me about why you wanted to make this game. I mean, obviously, you came up playing video games in a very specific era. I think that's clear.
True. Yeah, I think that's fair to say.
But, you know, it's one thing to be a fan of those games, to have it inform the style of game that you enjoy making, and it's another thing to make something like this, which is, you know, very, very clearly in a set lineage, a set series of games. So why?
Yes, the inspiration is definitely more than just a little bit shallow. The inspiration is pretty heavy there, I think. So what makes me want to make a game like this? You know, so I've wanted to make video games ever since I was a little boy, right? Like, I've always known that I want to make games. It wasn't until, and I honestly I feel a little bit foolish for not realizing this so much earlier. You know, I probably could have spent some of my time busy drinking and playing World of Warcraft in college, instead doing something a little bit productive with myself. You know, this was, I guess I started, I was a freshman in college, maybe 11 years ago now? It's been a while, I'm 29. If I just spent some of that time, that free time that I had to just waste on playing video games doing something productive, I would have done this a long time ago. You know, it's definitely, part of it's a timing issue for the whole Mega Man inspiration thing, right? Like, one of the big pieces toward trying to make a commercial game is that you need to believe that you're meeting an unmet market need, right? Capcom has ignored Mega Man and this classic 2D side-scrolling action for so long that I think a lot of people are just ready for more. You know, when we first started doing this, let's see, it was July 2013. I want to say it was our first like full-time production month doing this, so it's been a little over 2 years now. And at the time, you know, there hadn't been a new Mega Man game in a very, very, very long time. And we saw an opening there. I figured, you know, I guess I was 27. I'd been working full time as a programmer out of college for about 5 years, maybe 5 or 6. I had some money saved up, not a whole lot of money or anything, but some money saved up. And I figured if there was ever going to be a time when I could just afford to do this full time, this would probably be it, right? Like I don't have a wife yet, I don't have children yet. I had some money, and this was uniquely positioned as the only time in my life where I didn't have people depending on me when I did have money. So I figured I'd give it a try, but I certainly wish I'd started much earlier. In terms of the Mega Man inspiration specifically, like it's always been one of my favorite series. I was one of those, not to use this word offensively, I mean to use this word in the nicest way possible, but I was one of those sort of neckbeardy fans of like the series where I'm just like, oh god, I'm so passionate about why hasn't Capcom made any more of this.
Right.
I realized, wait a minute, I don't have attachments and I have some money and I'm a good programmer. Maybe I can do this. And so I took the plunge. I quit my boring cybersecurity job. Not that it was a bad job by any stretch of the imagination. It was a wonderful job. I was well paid. I loved the people. It was certainly a little boring, but what are you going to do? And decided to take a big risk and make a game.
Man, it's a rare moment that you really get to see somebody go out and say, I'm not going to make the game that I think is going to sell the best right out the gate. You're going to make the passion project first. That's right. That's a bold choice. Was there any moment that you thought to yourself, maybe this will be the second project. Maybe I love Mega Man so much that I might as well hold off on making the Mega Man game that I want to make until I've gotten a full game under my belt. Before that,
sure, the Chris Nolan Inception thing. He wants to wait a while and make sure that this project he has in mind really needs to be done right. So let's wait until we have a little more experience under our belt. Totally, it's occurred to me a lot. There are a couple things there. One, there's a chance that if I think this is the best idea I've got right now, there's got to be somebody else at least thinking of it out there, right? So if and this sort of came to pass, 3 months after we started working on 20XX, we hadn't told anybody, like we were still super, super, super early. The game was total garbage then. Just an absolute prototype with the most bare bones of art assets in there at all. When we first started going 3 months after, the Mighty Number 9 Kickstarter went up.
Oh man, that's brutal.
So it was, right? That was a hard day. That was a hard day. Definitely in the string of ups and downs of having a tiny little business with a tiny team, making a game that's kind of, it's taking on a lot. Like this is a big bite. 20XX at times has definitely been more than I can chew. That was a tough one. But anyway, so that went up. But Mighty Number 9 they're offering such a different experience than we are, even though we're both so heavily Mega Man inspired. We're mixing it in with this roguelikeness, just trying to offer our own twist on it. We have full co-op, we have online co-op, we have all this stuff that Mighty Number 9 doesn't really have. And they have, $4 million, which is something we don't really have.
Right.
I wish I had $4 million. God, that'd be great.
Well,
I can't even imagine what I would do with a tenth of that, much less.
The funny thing
all
is,
of that.
I say this, I have not even played the beta demo of Mighty Number 9 that is available at this point. So I'm speaking from a place of ignorance, but I also speak from a place of deep familiarity with Intercreate's sort of back catalog. This feels, despite the fact that there is co-op, despite the fact that there is the roguelike element, feels far more like a classic Mega Man game to me than anything Intercreates has made since 2010. And, when you were talking about needing to serve an unserved audience, I think that since Mega Man 10 came out, that there really hasn't been anything like that, And even before that, Mega Man ZX, those are not really Mega Man games, and neither is Azer Striker Gunvolt. And from the looks of things, despite the jaunty cartoon art on Mighty Number 9, it doesn't look like that is either. So, yeah, I can see how you're already diversified from that at a base level, but I think you're also the audience that you're looking to serve that you thought was underserved still isn't getting what they want.
I think you're absolutely right about that. It's always really nice to hear somebody else say that, because I certainly feel that way myself. Yeah, I thought I was going to have a lot more to say about that, but I really don't.
That's always the good answer. That's what we want here. The yeah! So tell me about the people that work with you. Tell me about your team. How many people have worked on this? I mean, obviously you're the point man, but How many people are working on 20XX?
So we've got 2 full-time team members, and then a number of part-timers that have helped us now and again, some of which are currently active with us, some of which aren't. So let's start from the top. My name's Chris King. I am the programmer, designer, and general 20XX guy. I do the code things. I do the gamey things. Zach Artis is our full-time artist. He's been with us since the beginning, since the long time ago of 2 years. He does most of the visual stuff you see in the game. In terms of, we're the only 2 full-timers in the project. Always have been. Probably always will be, unless I make a whole lot more money than I do right now with this. I would love to hire a bunch of people. Anyway, I digress. In terms of part-time help, we're partnering with Firehose Games in Boston, basically giving us some design and marketing help, just some design feedback. They're helping get the name about the game out, stuff like that. So they're giving us marketing support. We have this guy, Brandon Ellis, who lives in Georgia. I believe he still lives in Georgia. If he's moved, it's been in the last couple months. Who's done all of our wonderful sound and music in the game. Not sound, sorry, I lied. Music. He's our composer. He's done all the music. We're super happy with his work. There's probably some more of it coming in pretty soon for anybody listening to this that's played the game before. The sound design is actually a mix of garbage that I generated myself in VFXR, which is a pretty simple like web-based sound generation solution. It's worked out really well for me. Some stuff I've made that's a little bit more complicated than that, and we've tried our hand with a couple of part-time sound guys. So some of their contract work is in the game. But we haven't found anybody that we're really super happy with to take on the entire suite of sounds that 20XX needs. I think we're actually considering this on the sound front. Well, let's see. Do I want to go on a tangent now or not? Yes, why not?
Yeah, tangents are lifeblood on this show, man.
So I don't know if you've... I heard the Star Ocean tangent when I tuned in. Good God. So there's a video a couple years back of a guy who went through Half-Life 2, and he modded every single sound in Half-Life 2 with his own voice. So you'd see him running around with a pistol.
I've seen that. Yeah,
he'd be shooting people. It just goes pa 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 pa, and the little depth chart just goes boop, boop, boop. And it's really awesome, really hilarious video. So it actually gave me a little bit of an idea for this. When I have a little spare time on a weekend, I think I'm going to go ahead and come up with a list of all the sounds in the game and double over all of them with my own voice for 2 reasons.
Yes.
1, because I think it'd be hilarious, and 2, because it would give me, when I'm describing the way I want something in the game to sound to somebody who's prospectively going to make sounds for us, it's really hard to describe a sound with just words, right? If there's something in game that actually has the way I think it should sound, except made with my mouth for every sound in the game,
right?
I feel like it would also be an excellent reference for whoever does make our final sounds. So that's a little bit of that's classified information. Nobody needs to know that. That's not an official promise, but I think it's something I'm almost certainly going to do sometime pretty soon. And then just slide it into the game as like just something at the bottom of the options menu. Don't even mention it in the patch notes.
Dude, I think that would be so funny. I think
it'll just be called Excellent Sounds Mode, on or off. And if you turn on Excellent Sounds Mode, it's just all my voice.
I love it. I love that plan.
Should be pretty good.
Well, that's the kind of thing that I think most people wouldn't think of when they say to themselves, oh, I want to make a video game. My dream is to make a video game. I don't think they think to themselves, how am I going to make every single little sound effect in it? That seems like the kind of thing that they're going to have to think of later. What are some of the other elements of this process that have sort of surprised you or that you were not prepared for when you set out at the beginning?
Literally everything. Every last little component. No, it's not quite that bad. So the engine running 20XX, it's not made in Unity, and it's not made in Unreal. It's made in a custom C++ engine that I foolishly wrote myself. Foolishly because the tools today are so good and so strong that it probably would have saved a good chunk of time. I wouldn't be able to customize as much, but I wouldn't have had to spend so much development time on building an engine and making it do all this stuff. But it's really the reason that I kick myself for not having started this sort of thing so much earlier in my life. Like, there's currently an indie development boom. Everybody's seen the chart where the number of games released on Steam in 2014 absolutely dwarfs the number of games released any other year, right? Everybody's seen that terrible chart. Everybody talks about the indie apocalypse. I really, really wish, I have all the tools that are used to make this game. All of them were available like 5 years ago. All of them were available when I was busy, grinding for like PvP World of Warcraft characters at once when I was a junior in college. So if I just made something of myself then, instead of waiting until, I was in my late 20s and had a little money to do it, I'd probably be a lot better off.
Yeah, but Chris, now when when time travel becomes commercially available, you can go back in time and license your engine, man. It'll be fine.
I don't want anybody to ever have to look at the code that this engine is comprised of. This is absolutely write-only. It is for my eyes only. If you gave me $1 million, if you gave me $10 million, I probably still would not hire an additional programmer for this
Oh, well, we
project.
just happen to have $10 million right here, but if you don't want it, then...
Well, I mean, if the key for giving me $10 million is I have to hire another programmer, that's fine. We can make that happen. For $10 million, I could probably make it work. But if I had an option, I wouldn't do it. I would hire a whole bunch of artists. I would hire a designer or two to do the parts of the design that I don't want to do. I'd hire a bunch of marketers. Programmer would probably be at the bottom of the list. I'd even hire, I was about to say that I'd even hire like voice actors first, but I don't know if that's true.
Which parts don't you want to do?
So out of the stuff I do now, I do, 95% of the game design. I do all of the level design. I do all the programming, all the engine work, all the tech stuff, everything that's even kind of techy. I would love, the first person I would hire to take some of that off of my back would be a level designer, probably. I'd still write all the tools that go into level creation for us. But if I had somebody, so one of the things that I want to make sure I had a lot of before 20XX goes to full release is a whole bunch more level pieces, basically, right? I want a lot more variability within each level, which really means making sure that there are enough pieces such that the probability of coincidence or seeing the same things over and over gets lower and lower and lower. And it's a pretty time-consuming thing for me because it's definitely one of my weaknesses as a designer.
I don't want to interrupt you because I want to continue hearing where you're going with this, Chris. But I think to myself, if you do have more variation than what's here, don't you worry about alienating, say, the speedrunner crowd, which eat games like this up?
So, that's a great question. Hang on.
We'll get back to it.
Let me come back to that. I definitely want to come back to that because speedrunners are awesome. I love them, and I really want to make this as accessible as possible for them. But yeah, I would have somebody do some of the level design stuff for me. One of the things we're actually looking at there, and this is definitely like pie in the sky, super dreaming, right? This is almost, I don't want to say impossible, but it's not super likely that this happens by full release. Like if we're able to keep supporting the game after launch for a while, like if we make some money, so the game's selling pretty well. We'd love to add this sort of thing. But what we're really looking at doing is using the Steam Workshop to deal with level pieces for us. If we were able to set out some relatively simple tools that people could use to construct level pieces themselves, and then have people opt in to certain levels of experimentalness, where they will, if you opt into, so if you say no experimental chunks at all, the game will only give you the pre-designed levels that, we or I have made, right? If you opt into, light experimentalness, then the game will take level pieces from the workshop that have been, highly upvoted by users, and it will give you some, newer stuff, such like that. And then it will give people the ability to, vote on level pieces, basically so the algorithm can start using things that users have generated, so there will actually be, pretty much infinite replayability there. Because the level pieces, you might never see the same level piece twice if there are enough of them. If we had users generating pieces and a good way to vet that stuff. Anyway, that's just pie in the sky stuff for us. In terms of speedrunning,
you put in the bullet is enormous. There is no escaping.
The bullet is enormous.
There's no escape. Okay. You talk about time wasted in your early 20s. That is the line that me and my scumbag friends, when we were sitting around drinking too much and playing RPGs instead of making something, that's the line! That's the line uttered over and over again.
There's no escaping. Yeah, it's really good.
Magical person.
It's one of those things, that's probably the most hit or miss reference in the entire game. To people who don't get it, they're like, well, that's a weird language. I don't know if I typed that way. But anytime somebody gets it, they're like, why is this just a big, square? What's the deal with this thing?
But why not?
But anytime somebody gets it, I've actually only had, we had one person the other day, and this is another tangent that I won't go on just yet. We had one person the other day who in part of a review of 20XX on Steam called out that reference specifically as like a really lame reference, and I was like, wow, somebody got it and didn't like it. And it was the only time I've ever seen that happen. But the rest of the person's review was so well written and so well thought out. It's a little harsh to the game, honestly, but it was just so well put that I was astounded. It was the only time somebody's ever just totally disliked that specific reference. And I think it's probably my favorite one overall. Anyway, we were talking about if there were too many level pieces, would the game be unapproachable for speedrunners?
Yes.
So, I think in its basic format, it would make the game a very different speed runnable thing, right? It would be a speed run based on skill without memorization, essentially, which might be something that's super interesting to speedrunners. It might not be. I honestly have no idea, but. We also want to make sure we scratch the itch of the classic speedrunner, right? The guy who likes to set out routes, the guy who likes to figure out, this is exactly how I can get through this chunk, and I can save, a second and a half here, or I can handle, half a second here. So to sate those peoples, so 20XX has a number of challenge features, some of which actually just went live today's Thursday, so we patch the game every 2 weeks, right? Pretty much without fail. Every Wednesday, right around 6 o'clock Eastern, around when it should be the close of business for me. I live in Maryland. We push out a patch with a whole bunch of updates. Ooh, it's a shop. You can buy some sweet stuff, or you can walk away. That's fine too.
Well, I'm doing so much better on this casual run that I don't want to.
Hey, casual is a very legitimate way to get into the game. You should only feel a little bit bad.
Chris, it's your first time ever making a game, and you already have the gently, but saying that the way a journalist is playing it is okay thing down. It's down pat. It's an acceptable way to get into the game. I like that language. It's perfect.
I've just been really impressed with the level design overall, considering how it's pieced together. Because every single moment you've kind of known what you had to do. Based on the enemy movements, based on like the platform movements, it doesn't look like you've ever gotten confused as to what to do, which is exactly what you want in these games.
Yeah.
Hooray. Yeah, I mean it's really hard, right? To try and have the same exact quality level of level design as like the legendary Capcom level designers is really tough, right? Like that's a really tall order. So instead of trying to compete directly with them on creating static levels of perfect design, I wanted to generate pieces that I thought would flow together as well as possible and be relatively clear. Just to compete along the modes of competition that I thought I could actually maybe do something well with. But sorry, I was talking about challenges and speedrunners, and I wanted to make sure I got that. So there's a challenge system in 20XX that recently just got updated yesterday with the patch. So there are daily challenges that are scored both by like total final nuts, which will change to a more generic like enemies killed time left sort of score, and also by time. So you can speedrun the daily challenge or try and play it as wholesomely or as like completionistly as possible. I guess I should say. And those are dailies. You can now play them co-op for the first time yesterday. Before all of our challenges were solo only because they didn't work in co-op. So there's a daily challenge. And there's also now a weekly challenge. And the idea with the daily challenge is you get one try at it, and no matter how that run ends, you die, you win, your game crashes, your dog pulls out your power cable. No matter what happens, you only get one run, and it'll be locked until the next day. So it really tests your ability to handle a specific run with no foreknowledge of what's going to happen and see how well you can do. The weekly challenge, on the other hand, is aimed at the more rote memorization speedrunner community type, because the weekly challenge has no limit on the number of times you can try, and it never changes except from week to week. So from Wednesday to Wednesday, whatever is currently in the weekly challenge, and I haven't actually played it yet, whatever's in the weekly challenge is exactly what's going to be in the weekly challenge until next Wednesday. So somebody who enjoys planning out routes, who enjoys really optimizing every individual piece of the game, who wants to be able to map out the entire run so they can figure out which powers to take when should I buy passives, when should I skip them, that sort of thing, can do exactly that for a whole week, while still making sure that person who loves the rote memorization has something fresh to do the following week. You know, they can memorize it for 7 days, but then after that, it's entirely uncharted territory.
Chris, thank you so much for making bottomless pits not an instant death. That's just...
Well, so that's a big thing, right? Like, that's one of the ways we have to come off from the classic Mega Man formula. You know, since it's a roguelike or a roguelite, whatever you want to call it, you know, we have to make it so that you don't just instantly die anytime you touch a spike, anytime you touch lava, anytime you fall. Because, you know, over the course of 8 levels, like, the game is already, as you're making very evident, a pretty difficult game.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Right. So we really want to, well, you know, with the whole idea of the health bar in general for us is, you know, we want to make it so that you die if you commit too many mistakes. I don't really like instant death a whole lot in general, though it certainly does, you know, raise the stakes quite a bit. You know, it makes things very, very intense. I just think it's harder to design a game designed around instant death, especially when we intend for you to go for, you know, an hour-ish or 30 minutes-ish or however long a run takes you on one life. That said, 20XX does have an optional skull system, kind of like a Halo, where you can turn on all of these optional difficulty toggles if you are so daring. And one of them is called Rock, and Rock makes it so that spikes and pits and lava insta-kill you. So, you know, if you want to play with Mega Man style rules of dying instantly anytime something like that happens, that's your choice. You can do that. That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I respect that sort of style of video game masochism. There's always a place for it.
Well, I mean, we have cats and things in the chat saying, "Piffed, removal of death pits and spikes made the games worse." Just like overall that's softening.
Then the rock skull is for you, my friend. Yeah, real subtle. The flavor text for it, Neon J, even says "Remember your ancestors." It's definitely not. That's a pretty blunt reference. But it's definitely one I'm okay with.
I actually
like the rock.
I'm starting to wonder if I'm going to make it through this, man. I thought maybe
you can use your powers. The boomerang blade is actually his weakness.
I'm just...
If you live that long.
The 1 bar victory. Thank God. I was going to say... yeah, I know. You're going to miss out.
No, I actually didn't know how much of a delay there was. Oh, this is really exciting now. I wish I didn't know how it ends. Yeah, it does. The boss weaknesses do a ton of damage. That actually might need a little bit of tuning. So we intend for bosses to be much easier if you have their power such that the choice of whether or not to take a power should hinge on whether or not that boss still remains to be defeated, and in how long do you need to go defeat him.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit too far right now. Like, some of the boss fights are just way too easy without the Undying Skull on. If you have their weakness, you'll just, you know, you'll kill them very, very, very quickly, making the boss fight kind of shallow.
Well, you know, I think like, that's authentic. You know, that...
It is. It totally is.
Very authentic. Like, you know, Iceman in the original Mega Man can be an incredibly difficult fight unless you walk in there with the right stuff, and then he'll just explode the moment you walk in the room.
Right.
I'm curious about what other conventions, you know, things that you thought, you know, like you're talking about why there aren't instant death spike pits in the regular game, but what other things, you know, are part of the form, as it were, that you decided, you know, that can go, or even something that you wanted in that wasn't really working in the game you were making?
Let's see. The specific Mega Man-like conventions that we've had to move away from. One of them is the fact you'll notice that you have 3 powers right now, and they're all actually bound to your controller at once.
Right.
Unlike Mega Man X, there's no power cycling. So if you hit... Are you playing with a controller? I guess you are.
Oh, yeah.
So if you press Y, you'll throw your boomerang blade. If you press left bumper, you'll fire Vera, the machine gun. And if you press left trigger, you'll shoot the Quintlays, the huge blue box. So one of the things we wanted was that so we originally had this, you know, you collect all the powers and you can, you know, hit start and switch between them, or you can like cycle between them with shoulder buttons, whatever like that. But only one of them is ever mapped to your actual controller at once, and the rest have to be accessed by cycling. And that's fine. I felt like there would be more decision making to do if you had a limited number of slots, which is something that roguelikes kind of live and die on choice. And B, it would feel better if you could access more of your powers with all of these buttons that a controller has. So we changed away from that. You know, we still have the boss weakness loop. You know, we still have every boss takes bonus damage from at least one weapon. But we came away from that. Let's see. Currently, there's no... we really want... And this is not necessarily something we've come away from. It's much more something we haven't really been able to do yet, but maybe we still will. So the Mega Man X games have, capsules that give you awesome armor upgrades, right?
Right.
That change, the appearance of one of the slots in your character, and they do really awesome stuff, and they feel really great to get. We would love to do something like that, but it's not something that's in the game yet. Other than that, what other Mega Man-y conventions have we come away from? Obviously, instant death is one of them. Obviously, the idea that you only have one life is one of them, right? But that's much less. We threw this away from Mega Man, and it was just a natural consequence of making roguelike Mega Man. Like, you couldn't really have roguelike Mega Man and still have, a bunch of lives and be able to start on a random level, and it just wouldn't have made any sense. But we still have, 8 bosses. We still have the weakness loop. We're still going to have, and this isn't in the game yet, we're kind of holding it close to the chest, but every run of 20XX is going to end. So right now, a run just ends after level 8. Hooray, level 8, you did it, yay. But it's going to have a final level that kind of plays like a Wily's Castle or like a Sigma's Fortress kind of thing that has a couple of boss fights, sweet, probably 2-parter, like final boss fight, just to really add that gravitas to the end of the run. So every run will end in a similar place with a similar level theme. Obviously, still randomly generated within that theme, but a unique theme all the time, always, which will be super cool. Obviously, the challenges, the seeded stuff, all that's kind of non-directly Mega Man, but it's all extensions of what I like to see in randomly generated games.
So how different is what I'm playing? So today, this is the first time I'm playing today.
Yep.
And I feel like I've acquitted myself fairly well over the past hour and 10 minutes. I got better. I'm ready to leave casual mode. I'm ready to go back and sit at the adults table.
Yeah, you're totally shaping up. Your first couple runs were some real bumpy stuff.
Hey, I'm on the air. I got to be talking to a guy. I got to be managing things.
So diplomatic, bumpy stuff.
I don't have that line yet down, I guess.
It was a disaster, Anthony. It was completely not a disaster.
I can put down so many. I'm trying to think of like one really hard one. I could beat freaking Mega Man 1 on Game Boy with my eyes closed. Now it's over. Everybody just knows that's a lie.
I was about to say
true.
That's a really hard game.
Yeah, and not hard in a good way. And that's one of those things. People are like, oh, Rockman, whatever they called the Game Boy games. I know they were just Mega Man here, but there was something else.
They have a different title in Japan.
They did, Luddy. Lock that away for one of your damn quizzes, Ludwig. But there are examples of those games, not being great and being unfair in dumb ways. You were talking about the disappearing blocks and Heatman stage.
Right.
Pretty much everything in the original Game Boy Mega Man, everything in Mega Man X7 is ridiculously unfair. How do you go? What determines what's fair for you? How do you figure out what feels right?
One of the biggest things for us, and this is, I'm going to answer you with something tangentially related to your question, and I'm going to branch into something a little bit bigger for us.
Okay.
So the biggest thing for us, this is a segue into us talking about our early access community. So when we first pushed this game in early access, we got a relatively small number of sales, but we got a couple of really, really dedicated fans, and for the last several months, we've had just a pretty steady stream of people who will play the game every single patch, and they will give us feedback about everything we've changed, and everything they see has changed. They'll help us report bugs. They'll say, this level design probably shouldn't be able to generate this way because if you don't have certain powers, it's kind of bullshit. Stuff like that, basically. So when it comes to what's fair, it's definitely a 50-50 mix of my intuition about what should be fair, and then the community's feedback about what isn't fair. So my intuition when designing goes a lot of the way, but there's definitely still some, they're basically the level of design equivalent of bugs that still slip through to our early access game, and everybody knows there are going to be issues, there are going to be bugs. So it's just fantastic having this really dedicated community of early access people who will point out, this seems like it's a little bit too hard for where we are in the game. This one is really, really too punishing. I've seen Neon J in a whole lot of streams. I don't know who he is on Steam, but I know that I've seen that guy an awful lot.
He likes your game, man. He likes your game.
It's so incredibly important to us to have people like him who have been with us for the last, couple of months or several months or however long it's been, just because they give us such really amazing, fantastic feedback. They're, civil 99.999% of the time. Every so often somebody will post on the Steam forums and be like kind of a jerk, but even then, there's usually something like reasonable about what they're saying. So it's been so important to us to have this community of people that have been helping us make this game as good as we possibly can. Without them, there would be so many things about the game that play worse, or so many things that feel less fair. So one of the advantages I have over the people who made, I say the people who made as though I don't know who did it, over the Capcom team that made MMX7, is that with MMX7 you can have focus groups, you can have people play it from time to time, but the flexibility they have with their builds and with their community is nowhere near what I've got with Steam Early Access. The community of people that we have is so phenomenal. I can rely on them to give me feedback about stuff I don't even know I want feedback about. So it's been wonderful having the ability to just get continuous feedback about pretty much everything from this sea of constantly changing people, some of whom have been there for a very, very long time, some of whom have been there for a very, very short time. But there's always a pool of people ready and willing to give us awesome feedback in a very well-written and honest way. So that's been really great for us.
How are you determining when the game is done? How are you...
That's a great question. We have a list of features that we want to get in there. So which version of done are we talking about is kind of question one, right? Like there's done, this is full release, this is 1.0. And there's done, we probably won't be extending 20XX much further done, right?
Right.
Full release 1.0, we sort of have this idea that we can get everything we think we want to get done for first release in, sometime early-ish next year, probably Q1, almost certainly Q1, but we'll see. It's not a promise. But we'd really like to keep supporting the game so much longer than that. Like, there's a lot of stuff we know won't possibly make it into a release like that. Like, we don't have time to make and balance more playable characters, for example. It's a very time-consuming thing. There's a ton of iteration that goes into that, and a ton of design stuff that needs to make sure that any playable character needs to handle sufficiently differently to be worth making, which means there are a lot more concerns you need to handle. Like, if we had time and money, we would probably, I think the third character would probably be kind of a Rush analog. So instead of Rush being an assist kind of thing, the dog-like character would be his entirely own thing. So you'd have
You're not an
playable...
Axel guy, Chris. That's not.
No,
that's
I'm
not
not.
your thing.
I don't know. What is it? Copy chip crap. I'm not on board. Love Capcom. I love Mega Man. Axel in X7 and X8. All the goofy voice acting in those games. God,
so much.
no.
Well, I was very surprised when you say you wished, or you would
No, that's why I
consider
stopped
voice
myself.
acting.
That's why I stopped myself, because I don't want that.
But would you like to do it in the style of Mega Man 7 and 8? Some Dr. Wowie.
Dr.
Yeah,
Wowie?
Dr. Wowie.
Dr. Wowie.
We have to get the dark energy. It's really shitty. It's just bad. And it's the kind of thing where the game would be much better off if it had none of that. Like, not improve the voice acting, just if it were totally cut, it would be fine. Obviously, if there were none of the voice acting ever, we wouldn't have those scenes in the goofy scenes, like the cut scenes in Mega Man X4, with "What am I fighting for?" Like,
I love those.
Classic moment.
God, what's the name of the guy? He's a little pot-bellied dude at the beginning.
His name is Double.
Double.
Like, oh, he's a double agent. I didn't see that coming. His name's Double.
But like,
no, really.
What is even happening when he turns bad? He just starts killing people for no discernible reason. It's great.
Well, he's a double agent. He was a betrayer the whole time. His name is Double. It's pretty clearly telegraphed there.
I thought it was a bluff.
Some goofy stuff. Definitely not anything I ever want to add to something like this. We do want to do some world building. We do want to do some better narrative push. But I think something we've learned over the past couple months is that we don't really have the people on staff to do it. I'm not a talented storyteller or narrative doer of things. I'm talking about how I'm a bad writer, and then I say the words narrative doer of things. I think I have my own point.
That sounds like an official video game title, though.
Yeah.
I think I could see that on the credit screen very easily. Nope.
I should print that on a business card, yeah. So it's the kind of thing where we're actually actively looking for people to help us with that sort of thing now. It's unlikely to be delivered through heavy doses of text or via big, deep cutscenes. It's more likely to be a world built through show and not tell.
Well, I want to dive deep into the Nutstack lore.
Well, there's a lot to understand about a Nutstack that people don't really get at first glance. So there's a lot of that coming for sure. There's at least 7 books about the Nutstack. coming as
Great nut
supplementary.
stack.
But no,
material.
it's when you get the
Right,
Sonic the
20XX.
you need the Sonic the Hedgehog crossover with the Nutstack lore for it to get really entrenched with the fandom.
Yes,
man.
collect the
That's when-
Chaos
jeez.
Emeralds and the nut stack.
There's an idea. If I ever just want to completely shoot myself in the foot, I'll also do all of the game's lore
There you
via
go.
Steam Workshop, and I'll have hooks in game where I pull text from random Steam Workshop items.
That'll get
just have it
filthy,
have
man.
it populate with a whole
Mega Man
bunch of.
fanfic is going to be a great basis. for
95% of the lore in the game will just like you'll pop open a screen and it'll just say 8 equals sign equals sign equals sign equals sign capital D over and over and over. So-
Every item description ever.
Like, well, I'm bad at describing items, so I just thought I'd let the community vote. Yeah, it's the worst idea in the history of ever. It'd be very funny, and chances are, if I'd built in the like voting and quality control mechanism for whole level pieces, which is obviously way more complicated, you know, you would think that I would be able to do that for simple text too.
It worked for Destiny.
What did Destiny do about that?
Oh,
I
It
guess
Luddy.
seemed to outsource all of its names and
That's-
story bits.
That's not
Oh.
nice.
Well, look in the hive.
We fought Omnigul together, Anthony.
Yeah, we did fight Omnigul. That's a thing that happened. It felt like I bought like an off-brand Dungeons and Dragons book in 1987. I bought Prisons and Goblins. What is this?
Pretty
Not what I asked for, Mom.
brutal. I don't know. I mean, so the Destiny story was kind of whack. I think the wooden spoon for recent storytelling for me goes to Diablo 3. If either of you guys have spent much time with that.
Oh man, yeah, that one I played when it came out last year for PlayStation 4. I played a bunch of that version, and I know that there are people who are like they love Diablo like story stuff. I know people who are invested to the point of like reading novels.
Oh yeah, I mean, so Diablo's done lore and storytelling very right in the past, and everything for me at least,
Yeah.
except for Diablo 3, is really well done. And then Diablo 3 is just so incredibly shallowly written. You know, there's all of Act 2 where you're pursuing the Lord of Lies, and you're expecting all these like deep deceptions and twists as you play through the areas. And like every couple of maps, there's like this weird ghost child.
Right.
It's Emperor Khan, who's just like mysteriously there. He's like a little boy. Like there's obviously no way a little boy could be there with no guards, no nothing. Like it's very, very clear. So what I was expecting the entire time I was playing through it was for that to be, you know, is the red herring, the too obvious ruse. So then you like either are forced to slay him or something, and it turns out that he's not Belial. And there's like, oh, I'm a terrible person. What have I done? I've been crushed by the Lord of Lies, at least morally. But no, it's just a kid, and you kill him and move on. Same exact thing happens with Asmodean in Act 3. I am a master strategist. Oh shit, I'm dead. Really, really not good stuff. It makes you wonder. Like, so Blizzard has these huge budgets. They make these incredible games beloved by millions of people. But like, who is on the writing staff for those? What happened?
I feel like they had like a really prestigious writing staff. Like,
Yeah.
and they won't hire anyone unless they've published like a novel.
Right, but like,
And-
what happened there?
Yeah, where were they? Was
Like,
it like
I don't know.
vacation?
They took vacation. They had to save up. You know, they had 2 years.
Guys, we
of
really need to
vacation
finish
saved
this
up.
Diablo story. We know you're not here, so we'll just do what you usually would do. It seems fine.
I
Yeah,
wonder if that is a situation where they literally spent so long working on multiple versions of the game. And like Diablo 3, it was the first time I'd ever played a Diablo game. And I was very curious what all the hubbub was about. And once I got in there, it felt like something that had been made by way too many people over way too long a period of time. And all they did was focus on the minutia. Like the tiny little aspects of it, like what does this one weapon do, and how do I have to think about what people are gonna want and do with their characters? And then it got to be like the week before, and they were like,
Oh,
"Yeah, man,
Shit. We
ready
forgot
to
to write anything.
oh god, there's no text in the entire
Oh, no.
game. Go get me some friggin' Terry Brooks novels, stat. We're just
For
gonna
what it's worth, I think all the time they spent on the little minutia of how the game handles is phenomenal. Like I think the way their engine handles, the way their action handles is so very good. And every time they release a big new patch, like I always spend some time playing, just because even though it's it's stuff I've seen before for the most part, every little patch they add somehow makes the experience like fresh for me and some of the friends I play with again. But just
I need to
story
get back
feels
in there. Yeah.
pretty phoned in there. Yeah. Their latest patch, it was a couple weeks ago, I guess. I just started playing it after our beta shipped. So I've been playing it for the last week or so when I actually had time to breathe and exist and be human.
Chris, is Mina a robot? We couldn't figure that out at the beginning. We're sitting here talking about lore, and I don't even know what your character is.
Wouldn't you like to know, man? Maybe that's one of the deep secrets that I'll outsource to the Steam community. No, I feel like opening fanfic for a female character is just the worst idea.
Not a good idea. Not a good idea.
Not sure. Rated A for awful. Why did you do this? Yeah, so she's basically an augmented human, is sort of our thinking behind it. The idea behind the loose story that we penned a while ago that's currently nowhere to be seen in game and is therefore entirely unofficial, is that Nina and Ace are sort of the last vestiges of a humanity that's already been kind of wiped out and ruined, boosted to have maybe kind of a chance at survival by one of the artificial intelligences that is kind of responsible for this whole thing happening, but didn't really mean to. So it's kind of like as an, oops, I really didn't mean to end your race. Let me give you a shot at existing.
The computer AI known as Dr. Wawi.
Not that, unfortunately.
Damn.
Yeah, so that's sort of their backstory. So they're augmented humans. They're basically cyborgs, right? They're, who knows whether or not they are more machine or man or woman in Nina's case.
So we have just a few minutes left on today's stream, everybody.
It's already been an hour? What in the hell?
Right? See? Now that's what I like to hear. I like to hear our guests having a good time.
You guys are entertaining.
Yeah, everybody, thank you very much for watching. We have more great stuff coming to you next week. We have some very, very fun guests coming up. We have on Thursday next week, on the next episode of How It's Done, we're going to be playing Uncharted 1 with Naughty Dog. And if you guys want to yell at Naughty Dog about their games and demand
the jet ski.
if you want to yell at them about the jet ski, you can come on and hang out with us and scream at those people about their freaking jet ski. Before that, next Wednesday, we're going to be playing a little PlayStation 4 game called Party Hard on Departure Lounge. I think it looks hilarious. That's going to have Ludwig and Ashley Reed playing that game as I fall into a bottomless pit. Next Tuesday, on I Got Next, I am going to be playing Illbleed, the Dreamcast haunted house game.
Wait, you're really doing that?
I am going to be playing it.
I suggested that jokingly.
Wait for it, Ludwig. I am playing Illbleed with a man named John Huntington, who is the designer of he's the audio-visual designer of a real haunted house here in New York City called the Gravesend Inn. And I can't wait to, just put Illbleed in front of him and see what happens. I think he might just leave. I think he might. I think he'll look at me and be like, why did I agree to this? I'm getting the hell out of here. And then on Monday, we are going to be forcing poor Maxwell McGee from our staff to play Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5. Why? Because we have to know. We have to know what the hell is going on in there. If we don't know, then you guys might end up playing it, and that won't be good for anybody. As for Batterystaple Games and Chris King, you guys can go play the early access version of 20XX right now on Steam. Chris, how much you gonna drop on this game if you play the early access version?
Currently, the game is $12. The full release price is probably, almost certainly, going to be $15. So it's kind of as we progress through early access, we've been raising the price closer and closer to $15. We basically want our consumers to feel like, consumers, what a technical term. We want our players to feel like they're getting a good deal for what they're buying no matter when they buy it, right? So really, really early on, it was only $8, pretty unfinished game, so we charged a pretty unfinished price. So it's been going up and up. Currently it's 12, pretty soon, I don't know exactly when, it'll jump up to 13 or 14 or maybe 13.50 or something like that, and then close to release. When we're just sort of in the final bug phase and all the content and all that stuff is in, it'll be, probably the full 15.
Chris, I gotta tell you, no bullshit, man. I say this as a person who, in the year 1990, insisted that his second grade teacher go directly to the lamination machine and put laminate and binding on his homemade book called Mega Man 4. I like your game, man.
Thank you so much. It means a tremendous amount. I really mean that.
Yeah, and you absolutely need to come back and join us again when the full version comes out in Q1, man. You need to join us again and sort of show us what's changed and all that.
I absolutely will.
Luddy, is there anything you would like to point people to on GamesRadar.com before we sign off?
You already took it away from me. I was going to say go to gamesradar.com because there's just a whole bunch of stuff on every single game imaginable right there. If you like video games, you've got to read us.
And Ludwig's review of the Uncharted Nathan Drake collection. Ludwig played all 3 Uncharteds in a single weekend, everybody. That's what he did for you. I wouldn't do that.
That's love.
That's real love. All right, everybody, we will see you next time. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.